Alright, what's up everybody? My name's Thomas, and I'm finally back with another video. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about my new camera. It's the camera that you're watching this on right now. It's the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, or better known as the Pocket 6K or the BMPCC 6K. I wanted to walk you guys through the research that I did between all the different cameras and its competition. So if you're shopping around for this camera or a different camera, I hope that my information here and my experience can help you out to see if this camera's for you or if the other choice is better for you. So with that, let's get into it. So in no way is this an in-depth video. I'll have videos coming up on like the different settings that I use, the different rig outs. Right now I have it on the full rig. Sometimes I have it on a smaller contained rig. I'll touch on that later, but right now it's just story time. So yeah, the cameras that I was looking at around this time of, I think it was August, what was it, 7 months ago? It was August of 2019. I was looking at the GH5, the GH4, Fuji X-T3, Fuji X-T30, the Canon C200, which it's a beautiful camera. The Canon C100 Mark II, the 5D Mark IV, and I even looked at the Pocket 4K. So right before I left for a production with Moment, we went to Asia to shoot some online lessons. Right before production, the Blackmagic Pocket 6K came out. It covered a wide spectrum of things that I wanted. I wanted a Super 35 sensor, EF mount, because I knew at some point I wanted to either get a 5D Mark IV or an EOS R, so having EF would be helpful to be able to adapt or have a native lens for a different camera. It has 13 stops of dynamic range, which the dynamic range is so important to have a nice image where your highlights just aren't automatically clipped when you have like some crazy mixed lighting. Shoots 6K RAW and has a ton of different codecs. And when sample footage started coming out from this camera, I noticed I had a little green tint to it, which wasn't too bad, but the colors were amazing and the quality was incredible. The camera has a very distinct look compared to the Pocket 4K. The Pocket 4K is a micro four thirds, whereas this is a Super 35 sensor. It's a bigger sensor, lets more light in, and it has that like cinema look to it. But yeah, at this point in my career, I was ready to step up to like a dedicated video camera. For the most part, I was doing both video and photo for all my different projects, and I needed a hybrid camera. But since I already have a hybrid camera that could take dedicated photos, I thought I might as well step up my video game since that's my main gig. And the thought of having a dedicated video camera just didn't really scare me. So with all of that, it just made the most sense. Now, I was looking at the C200 because the C200 has everything all in one. You have the monitor, XLR, mic. Everything is just in this small little package, whereas the 6K, you have to rig it up. But the C200 was like $6,000 for the body, and then everything else made it to be like 7 or 8. This was probably about 4 to 5. Rigging up this camera is definitely the downside of it. Every time I travel, I have to tear it down. I have to take off the handles, the rails, the tripod mount. I basically have to strip it down to nothing to carry it in a bag, and then once I get to the place that we're going, I have to rig it back up, and then it's kind of finicky to mess with. So that's definitely the biggest pain with this camera, but I could live with it. First thing I noticed with this camera is that it is huge. My Sony is smaller. My whole Sony setup, the a6500 plus the 16-70, is smaller than my Sigma lens. So my first trip that I had with this camera was actually my production in Iceland with Moment, with Tom Kaler, Niles, and Elliot Simpson. So instead of shooting with the C200 and an EOS R in Asia, now we're shooting with two Super 35 sensor cameras. So we have the C200 as the A, my camera as the B, and it was sick just running around Iceland, climbing mountains, hopping in and out of the Defender, grabbing B-roll, grabbing A-roll, and just filming a full production with 3 rad dudes. So for the first couple of days that we were in Iceland, we didn't shoot with the Pocket 6K because we were just mostly filming ads, so we just needed one camera. So I was able to shoot with the C200 and film Niles with it. Now shooting with the C200 was sick because you have the hand grip with the strap, and all of it's in a pretty small, contained body. So I was really eager to shoot with the Pocket 6K, but for the first couple of days, we didn't need to. But in Iceland, the weather changes like every 30 minutes. And this camera isn't weather sealed, so I was pretty nervous going into it. I brought a travel towel from REI to like keep wiping it down. I thought about bringing an umbrella or like wrapping it in my jacket. But for the most part, when you're rolling, you have to keep rolling. But for the whole trip, even with rain going in and out and just wiping it down, it survived somehow. I don't know. The SSD was getting soaked. The vents on the top and the bottom were getting soaked, but the camera did fine. So that was Iceland. Then my next shoot was a wedding for an old high school friend. And the A camera was the Pocket 6K and the B camera was the Sony. And I had the Pocket 6K exactly like how I had it in Iceland. And normally people say, oh, for a wedding, like you want to have the lightest rig possible on a gimbal, all this stuff. But I shot it the same way that I shot those lessons. It was all handheld. It was heavy rig, so it helped with like movements. The image was just so good. getting back to my computer and looking over the files, it was just so worth it to see the kind of image that came out. I had access to a ton of different focal lengths. Like I handheld at 70-200 and 1080 at just the standard crop. And it was sick to be able to stand during the ceremony behind everybody and get like an up close tight shot of the bride and groom. And same with having a 70-200 and 2.8K, zooming in super far on a tripod, it just made for a very nice, versatile package. Instead of having to switch between tons of lenses, you just change a setting real quick and you have a crop that still looks good because it shoots in RAW. So for the next type of shoot I had was 2 videos for Ruka. I shot an action one with Jalen Turner as he was training for his fight in Auckland. And then I shot like a stylistic one over their like Yager full kit. Again, this camera outperformed my expectations. The image looked incredible, even though it had like this gross light inside their gym. Handheld just swooping around as Jalen's training with his trainer. I think I shot this in 4K 422 HQ, but the file sizes were way too big. So I dumbed it down to 422 and it's just as good. It still looks incredible. It still gives you that insane color. So that was my experience with the Pocket 6K from research to now. I am very stoked that I bought this camera. I think it fit my kind of shooting very well. I love the run and gun handheld look. I wanted something cheap, but not sacrificing on quality or the image or really anything. And this became my favorite camera I've ever used. Though I've shot with the C200, I've had experience with other different cameras. This camera is actually the best I've ever used. Compared to the C200, I think the image is way nicer. Having a wide range of codecs is so great, but you do sacrifice having a rig that you can just plug and play and just build on the spot. This one takes a little bit of time, but if you account for it, it's no worries. But yeah, versus the competition, I think Blackmagicdesign places this camera in a very unique range. At $2,500, it fits the range of the mirrorless cameras that everyone's buying, but it's way cheaper than, say, a C200, a C100, an Ursa, which the Ursa Mini G2 looks sick. I think this camera is for the more serious shooter or the guy who's trying to get more freelance clients, who's shooting on hybrid cameras or DSLRs, that knows that he wants to step up the image, but is not relying on the camera gear doing the job for him. Because like with everything, gear is important, but your story and the way you shoot things is way more important than what camera you have. But if you want to keep up with the increasing resolutions and have 6K RAW, 4K ProRes, 1080, 2K, all that stuff, and future-proof your camera, and have that nice Super 35 sensor, I think this camera is a great fit for you. But if you're a casual filmer, YouTuber, I'd say there's like other cameras that are probably better for that, like the Canon EOS R, because you have a flip-out screen. It's a great image, and it's small. You could take it anywhere. It's good for vlogging. It's good for backpacking. Like, that camera you can take really anywhere, whereas this pocket camera, you can't really take it anywhere. Like, it's kind of ironic that the name is pocket because you can't fit in your pocket. But yeah, this camera is also great for the person who wants to go down the cinema line but isn't ready to commit to an Ursa, a C200, a Red, really anything like that. It's a good in-between to get your feet wet in the cinema market and to see like a dedicated video camera that doesn't have autofocus or IBIS, which this one doesn't. And I didn't list that as a downfall because manual focus is where it's at. Like, having fluttery autofocus is pretty distracting, and IBIS, you don't really need it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you're looking at this camera and you want to know more. Let me know if you're looking at any other cameras, because I want to see like what people are shopping around for. The Canon EOS R5 is coming out soon, which should be sick. Kind of looking forward to that as my B camera. So yeah, with that, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Let me know what you thought. Yeah, take it easy. Peace.